All right. How's everyone doing? We doing good? We doing good? That was a great time of worship. Thank you, Mason, and thank you, Pastor Micah, for everything that you guys had to say there. Listen, tonight it's our last regular campus school night of the year. It's the last one. It was honestly, it felt like this year really flew by really fast, didn't it? I feel like just a couple months ago we were starting back up in September. But time flies when you're having fun. And listen, some of you in the room, this will be the last time you sit in on a refuge service before we get into this crazy summer schedule that we have. And some of you in the room, you don't realize it, but you're about to be either in 10th, 11th, or even going to be a senior next year. So time, you could tell, is flying super fast. So I want to encourage you to cherish the time that you do have. Take the time to listen to whatever is ever shared up here. Because just as Pastor Micah was saying, everything that he said up here tonight, 100% is all said to speak into your life. And we don't want to just speak into your life tonight, but rather we want to speak into your life continually, week after week, the whole way through your high school journey. And that's the point. But tonight's the last night, and we're going to wrap up our series on Please Explain. You guys know that have been here. Pastor Mike has been going super, super deep into this stuff about parables and what Jesus has called for us and stuff like that. But tonight, I kind of want to test your memory to start out tonight's service. Week one, Pastor Mike has shared a bunch of riddles with all of us, and I want to start tonight off with a riddle as well. And this riddle, let's see if some of you remember this. It says, "I am very large, but I look small. And when night falls, I am cherished by all. What am I?" Does anyone know what it is? It's not you. I mean, technically, could be you someday. Does anyone remember the riddle? Do I need to repeat it one more time? All right, it says, "I am very large, but I look small. And when night falls, I am cherished by all. What am I?" What? The moon? You're super close. It's a star. It's a star. Right? And we're going to talk about this thing called a star for a moment, because how many of you does anyone in the room do astronomy or anything like that at the high school? There's a couple of you. Cool. The whole school thing that we have, the auditorium and stuff, that stuff is super cool. I only ever got to go in there once, but it's super cool. But stars are pretty cool, right? And there's so many different things to know and learn about stars, especially in school. But see, a star isn't necessarily always one of those bright things that we see in the star at night. Sometimes a star to us personally is a person. It's someone who's famous, has a huge following, or someone who has a huge influence on our own personal lives. And let me tell you something. In 2023, I know it's only May, we're close to June, but there has been a lot that has happened with stars this year. So I want to ask you a question. I want to get your brains turning here. In your opinions, who are some of the biggest stars alive today in 2023? Just give me some examples. The Rock. Matt Ryan. Ryan Reynolds is, okay. Okay. Ryan Reynolds, okay. There's a lot. Pete Davidson. LeBron James. I was waiting for someone to say it. John Morant. Yes, John Morant is a star. So these people are all stars, right? Well, I found an article on Google that states the top 5 stars of 2023 so far for this year. Does anyone want to take a guess on who number 5 is? I'll give you a hint. TikTok. It's someone on TikTok. No? It involves more than one person. We'll just say that. No. No. You guys just want the answer? All right, number 5 is this. Go ahead, Dennis. It's Justin Bieber, Selena Gomez, and Hailey Bieber. Why? Well, because decidedly on TikTok, one decided to diss the other and then caused the whole dissing type thing. And before you know it, this whole big old piece of drama just started blowing up all over the place. And then people were like, Team Hailey, Team Selena. And then Justin's just in the middle, like, I don't know what I'm doing here. It is still a thing even today. There's still TikToks that are made on a daily basis about all the drama that is surrounding by this. All All right, number 4. Does anyone want to take a guess on number 4? Not LeBron James. Other than the fact that he might retire. I mean, that's kind of depressing. He's just on there now. Does anyone have a guess on number 4? Huh? She's a singer. Not Taylor Swift. No? 2, 1. Answer is, number 4 is Miley Cyrus. Why? Why is Miley Cyrus trending right now? Well, she's trending because she released that song called Flowers, and then decided to diss Thor's brother in the music video, and then decided to make the song all about him, which blew up on, once again, TikTok everywhere. And because of this, it went trending all over the place, and then people were all like, yeah, we're on Miley's side for this, and then some of them were on the other dude's side, and it just turned into this big old mess, which made her trending this year. Number 3, it's another singer. I'll give you a hint on that one. She had a very significant performance this year at one of the biggest things. It is Rihanna. Number 3 is Rihanna. Why? Because she performed at the Super Bowl earlier this year, and it was one of the better shows that I have seen in recent years. Number 2, who do you guys think it is? Someone already said who it wasn't? I'll give you a hint. She has a huge tour going on right now. It's Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is trending all over the place because she has a tour where she's going all across the country, in the world, and the show is over for like 5 hours long from what I heard. It's like a very long concert. And yeah, tickets are like $1,000 some for to see Taylor Swift. And she has like all these different wardrobe changes in the middle of the concert, and it's just this crazy big old thing that's trending all over the place. And now, number 1, I did not expect, because I know she was trending last year because of all of her acting success, and especially being, Tom Holland's girlfriend. I didn't expect her to be number 1 this year. It is Zendaya, who is trending because of all of her success that she has had over the past year. And everybody wants her in their films, but the thing is she's taking a break. But she's trending because she's trying to take a break, which is crazy, because everybody wants her to be in their shows or their movies. And she is the number 1 right now. Number 1 right now is Zendaya. I would think it's Taylor Swift because of all the tour and all the big news and stuff, but yeah. But see, I want to bring it in on something here. Those stars that you guys were mentioning beforehand when you guys were talking to me, you guys mentioned some of the people that have influence in your lives. I showed you who the top 5 are right now this year. I want you to know, these people that we talked about, they had to work very hard to get where they're at. They didn't get famous just like at a snap of a finger. Rather, they had to work hard. They had to grind and put in the hours and have faith in themselves in order to accomplish the things that they have done. Right? And some of these stars, their rise to fame was slow and steady. And even the ones you mentioned, most of them, their fame was slow and steady. And now there are some stars, though, who have had fame come pretty much within overnight or just within a couple of months, and we call these people overnight successes. Overnight successes, right? I'm stuttering super bad, I know, don't. But some stars have just become famous overnight. The top 3 I could think of. Number 1 is this. I actually looked these up on Google too. Emma Watson, because of her performance in Harry Potter. And because she was in Harry Potter and how successful the movie franchise was, before you know it, she was in other movies, Disney movies. She was in all over the place. And she actually, because of one big role, blew up. One big role. This was her first role. She blew up over it. Another one. This one's very interesting to me. I never knew this one. Is actually Billie Eilish. It was super quick how fame came to her because she actually wrote her first single and her very first album in her bedroom. Literally in her bedroom, she recorded her first song, and within a month, she had an entire album. She released all of it, and just within a couple of months, she was the most streamed artist in the world, and actually that year ended up becoming the most streamed artist of the entire year. And all she did was start in her little bedroom, probably in a 2-bedroom house, right? And then this one's my favorite, just because it revolves with sports, Patrick Mahomes. Now his was like 2 years. What happened? Well, Patrick Mahomes, he blew up. He started getting all fancy with his passes. He ended up throwing a bunch of touchdowns. Before you know it, the following year, he wins a Super Bowl. He loses to Tom Brady, unfortunately. But because he ends up winning a Super Bowl so quickly, what ends up happening for him? He ends up signing the biggest deal in American sports history at $450 million. At $450 million. That's insane as a football player. And see, there are plenty of reasons why all these stars have such a huge following. And maybe it's because of their talents, yes, but there's other things too that brings the attention to them. And what brings the attention to them is people wanting to know what's next for them. For the people that we let have influence in our lives, we want to know what the people we look up to are doing next. You know, for Taylor Swift, we want to know where the next city that she's going to tour at. For people like Zendaya, we want to know what's the next big TV show or big movie that they're going to be into. We want to know what these people are going to be doing. And then on top of that, we want to know who their friends are. We want to know who they're hanging out with, you know, so that we can follow their friends as well and follow all their friends on Instagram and social media and then start watching the things that they're involved in. But the big thing about it, too, is because there's something within each and every single one of us when we look up to people. There's something within us that actually wants to be a part of something that's bigger than just ourselves. There's something within us that wants to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, and that's why we look up to these influencers. Let me ask you another question. Have you ever loved something so much that you've wanted others to experience it as well? Have you ever loved something so much that you have wanted others to experience it too? I know there's some of you in the room that have. I know down at Tyrone campus there's a student who loves Taylor Swift. And when Taylor Swift's new album came out earlier this year, that person could not wait for church on Sunday night, to show me and Pastor Micah the new Taylor Swift album. She wanted us to experience the Taylor Swift album with her because she had loved it so much. And how many of you know that whenever you're the big influencer, whoever may be, the biggest TikTok guy out right now, whoever may be, when that person drops a new video and it's funny, what's the first thing we want to do? We want to send it to all of our friends. So we hurry up and we download it on our phones and we're sending it all over the place. We add it to our likes, we save it. Before we know it, we have it posted all over the place. So we've all loved something so much that we've wanted our friends to experience that as well. We wanted our friends to experience the influencers that we look up to. And, you know, whether it's our favorite musician, our favorite movie, hobby, or viral video, it makes sense that we want to share things that we love with each other. And when we learn about something someone else loves, it makes sense that we want to learn about that too. So like me, personally, I love basketball. And you guys know I talk about basketball all the time. I could talk basketball all day. Well, Coy sits in the van with me and tells me things about basketball sometimes that I don't even know about. And it was all because I used to sit there and talk to Coy about basketball all the time. And because I took an interest in it, he decided, well, did you know this, A, B, and C? Because outside of Refuge, little did I know, he's a Phoenix Suns fan. Which, no, that's not a good thing. I'm joking. But there's something inside all of us that wants to be a part of something that's bigger than ourselves. And that's why we look at people like our friends to see the things that other people are into. And that something is meaningful and it's still growing, and that's within each and every single one of us. Whether you believe it or not, deny it or accept it, there's something inside of each of us that is still growing, right? Let me share an example with you. I started teaching and coaching basketball earlier this year for a local Christian private school called GCS, right? And I was the varsity team assistant coach. Walking into this, I'm not going to lie to you, I've never coached a day in my life. I've only played the game. So I had no idea what this was going to look like for me. And in a moment, there'll be a picture behind me of the team. And I didn't know, when I walked into this, I did not know whether or not these kids were going to be good basketball players or if these kids were going to be terrible basketball players. And I was honestly kind of worried to find out, to see how much work I really had in store for me. And see, as we practiced and we got to know each other, I learned a lot about the kids. And these kids, now what's really interesting about this was they had actually not had a winning season in years. And they had actually just come off of a 2-win season, meaning they've only won 2 games in the past year. So I knew that coming into this, I was like, okay, we got to do better than 2 wins. At least we got to do better than that, right? And so as we practice, we got into this idea of we need to get the kids to understand that they're part of something bigger than themselves. This isn't a selfish game. This game is about playing as a team. And we needed each and every single kid to get that. You know what I mean? So when we did this, and when we were able to work with the kids on the team and get them to understand, like, this is a team thing, this is bigger than just you, they took a different outlook to the game completely. There was cheering on the bench. There was on the court, the game looked so much better. The parents were so much into the game. And other coaches from previous years ended up coming to our games, watching us, because they had no idea how we and me and the other guy were able to turn everything around and make it look so much better. And because we were able to help everyone understand, hey, you have plenty of room to grow in this sport, and because you can understand that this is a team sport and there's something bigger within yourself that wants to be a part of this, because we did that, the atmosphere was different. Their lives were different. We were able not to just make an impact in the sport of basketball, but we made an impact in their lives outside of it as well, of how they looked at life on a daily basis. And through that, because we did all this, we won 9 games this season. We lost 13, but we won 9 games, which is a big, better, significant increase to where we were the previous years. It's not a winning record by any means, but the reality of it was, to the parents, to the coaches, to the players, and to everybody else, it was a winning season because everybody had a different outlook on a game. And actually made everyone want to come back next year. It actually made them want to get their other friends to come in and be a part of it, because they knew, listen, there's something that you got to be a part of. This is something that you have to come and be a part of. And let me tell you something, I know for me, I talk a lot about basketball. For you, I don't know what that looks like. But there's something out there that's meant for all of you to be a part of. And that's the big thing that we want to talk about this evening. Because through one-on-one conversations and time invested, that's how we grow. That's how we learn about these different things that want to grow inside of us. And when we realize those things that want to grow inside of us, that's when we start looking at influencers. That's when we start wanting to be a part of other people's lives, and we start realizing, hey, you're into this person, well, I want to start getting to know who those people are. And then I want to know who their friends are, so that I can get connected with all those different things for a purpose. And so when we talk about Jesus, where's Jesus come into this entire thing? Let's get into it. When we talked about Jesus following God, we often talked about it differently in a sense here when we talked about please explain. We talked about something that was bigger than any of us, because Jesus is talking about something that's always growing. Jesus teaches about something that's always growing. And how he taught in these things is he taught through parables. And as if you were here the past couple of weeks, then you would know that we've talked about some parables that Jesus talked about. And these parables, they were fictional illustrations made by Jesus to reveal a very big truth that he wanted people to get and to understand. Because Jesus knew that stories and images often stuck into people's minds better than just words did. Images work out better than words. So most of the time, though, the people were confused by these stories, and they wondered what in the world was Jesus really saying in these stories. So as we wrap up our series and even our school year here, we're going to look at one more story that Jesus told and wonder about what he was trying to explain. And I saw some of you ask me this earlier. Some of you were like, what in the world are these little things up on the stand? Well, these things are little mustard seeds, and this is what we're kind of going to lean into tonight. Is Jesus is going to talk about these things here. And does anyone here know anything about mustard seeds? Yeah? Okay. At least somebody knows something about them. Maybe you do know a thing or two, or maybe you've just eaten a lot of mustard. I don't know. But that's understandable, because none of you have probably ever heard of mustard seeds until tonight, which is perfectly fine. You may not be familiar with them, but the people back in biblical times knew everything about these things. They knew more about mustard seeds than probably most of us in the room do. And that was because Jesus liked to use these images in his stories his listeners would have been able to identify and relate to. So, as we listen to this story that Jesus is going to teach here, I want you to think for a moment about these 3 things. I want to prepare your minds for what we're about to read. It's super short, but I want you to, number 1, what do you think the parable that we're about to read is about? Plain and simple. Number 2, what's the confusing part about this parable? And number 3, what do you think the spiritual lesson in this story could be? That's what I want you guys to think about just as I read this story. And this is how it goes right here. And he told them another parable. It'll be on the screen right behind me. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and planted in his field. Though it is the smallest of all seeds, yet when it grows, it is the largest of garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds come and perch in its branches. That's it. So Jesus says that the kingdom of heaven is compared to a mustard seed. It is a tiny seed that has the potential to grow into something that's a much larger plant. So, when we look at this, what's the confusing part about this parable? Well, most of you in the room are probably like, what's the kingdom of heaven that Jesus is talking about? What does a mustard seed have to do with the kingdom of heaven? Like, how does that relate? What does Jesus want us to really understand and get about it? Well, when you see the Bible is talking about the kingdom, we're talking about God's will becoming a reality on earth. That's what we're really talking about. And God is the ruler of this kingdom. So when we see things happening that are a part of God's will, then we can assume that it is helping grow the kingdom that we're talking about here. So what does this have to do with the mustard seed? What does this mustard seed have to do with the kingdom? Well, see, get this. A couple of facts about some mustard seeds. A mustard seed is actually considered an invasive species, meaning that it is not native to the environment and is actually considered an exotic species. If left unattended, this plant will grow out of control and can continue expanding over and over, as long as it finds good soil in which it is to grow. It isn't an expensive or a rare plant. It is not hard to find or difficult to get your hands on. But Jesus said the mustard seed can grow large enough to let the birds rest on its branches. So this little thing, let me pull one out for you. If I can even get one in my hand, I'll probably end up getting like 6. You probably can't even see this. You really can't. It's literally barely the size of the space between my fingers. Literally barely. This little seed, tiny little thing, can grow into one of the largest tree garden plants that you can ever see. This little thing. Seriously, this tiny little thing that you barely could probably see. You probably just see my fingers pushed together. But there's a little seed in there. And there's one little one right here. Jesus said this can grow so big as long as it's on good soil, it'll grow so big that you may rest on its branches, that birds will rest on its branches. So, these parables that we read about, they're so good, and they're included in the Bible because they not only get our heads spinning and thinking, but they bring such a bigger idea. See, there's a much bigger idea to what just Jesus said there in those couple of verses. That verse expands out into a whole bunch of different things that we can read. So what are things that we can get from this? Well, 4 quick things. 1, the kingdom of God isn't difficult to find or access. God's love is open to all of us. Number 2, like the birds that rest on the branch of the tree, God's kingdom provides a place for us to find rest, safety, and comfort. With God, we always have a safe place to land. Number 3, God doesn't require expert gardeners to help grow his kingdom. The garden will grow even where you or I mess up. And number 4, like the seed, small, insignificant things often grow into things that are hugely important. The little things could be something huge for your future. Let me say that one again, because that's the one I want you to stick to. Like the seed, small, insignificant things often grow into things that are hugely important. The little things could be something huge for your future. These little things, so insignificant right now, because you're probably just like, this dude's just holding a seed in his hand and he's preaching about it. But these things grow into things that are hugely important. And it's the little things that could be something that's huge for your future. Because the reality of it really is this. This little thing right here, what you can turn this into is unimaginable. And who has the ability to turn this into something? We do. We do. So what's this have to do with faith? Well, Jesus said that we are to have faith the size of a mustard seed. If we have faith this big, and something that you guys can't even see, faith this big is all you need. That's all you need to access this kingdom that Jesus is talking about. All you have to do is believe in him a little tiny bit, and you have access to this. But how does this relate to us? Because let me say something to you. How many of you in the room have ever had a dream? You've had a dream about something that you want to do with your life. Everyone has a goal in their life. We all have a place that we want to be someday, right? And when you get, what made you like sit there and say, I want to do A, B, or C? Like, what made you say, I want to be a doctor when I get older? What made you say, I want to try to make a sports professional league when I get older? What made you say that? You had to have thought it in your head and told yourself, no, this is something that I really want to do for myself, right? This is something that you've had to tell yourself, like, I really want to do this. You've had to have faith in yourself at one point to tell yourself, hey, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a professional athlete. I want to go work wherever. It all started the size of this. It all starts the size of a mustard seed. And the reality of it really is all you need is faith the size of a mustard seed to begin walking into the dream that God has for each and every single one of you. Because there's a call and there's a plan upon your life. You hear me talk about this all the time. You are created for a purpose uniquely, individually. God looked at you and said, you are his son and his daughter. He said that you are his, and there is a reason why you're here. There's a reason why you're here. And the first step into all this is to realize and to understand you need to have faith in yourself or faith in God the size of this, just this, to begin your journey towards your dream and towards your relationship with Jesus. That's all it takes, is this. But let's be honest. Sometimes there's some of us in the room, and I have seen people like this before. There are people out there that do not have faith in themselves or anything like that that barely even reaches the size of that. There are some of us that have at one point in our lives have told ourselves, I don't have faith in myself at all. Whether that is because someone significant in your life told you that you're not worth it, they told you that your value was insignificant, and it just made you realize, okay, there is really no purpose for me. I have no faith in myself. I don't really care what happens to me in my life. I could care less if I end up homeless. I can care less if I end up in jail. There are people out there that have ended up like that. There are people like that. But I'm here to encourage you and tell you, whether it's you in the room or whether it's somebody that you know, you have the ability to share what you know with people. Week after week, you guys come here. Some of you pay attention to us. Some of you goof off the entire time. Some of you probably don't pay attention to a single thing we say. That's fine, but there's something that brings you here. There's a reason why each and every single one of you keep coming back every week. I don't know what it is, but it's probably because each of you at one point have realized you have had faith or you've had some sort of value within yourself that is at least this big. That is at least this big. So what is stopping you from going out to the other people that have zero faith in themselves, the people that are completely broken, the people that don't know a single thing about themselves, their lives are heading in the complete opposite direction? What's stopping you from helping them find that small little piece of faith? Because let's be real, that's all it takes. It takes that small little piece of faith within themselves, within Jesus, to sow a dream that eventually turns into something so much bigger than they could possibly ever imagine. When I was younger, like I said, I loved basketball. I played basketball my entire life, all throughout high school. And my goal was to play basketball in college and hopefully maybe get a tryout somewhere, play semi-pro, play professionally somewhere. I don't know what it looked like, but I knew that's what I wanted to do with my life. Then there was a day where God smacked me and he told me no. I knew I was called to come and do youth ministry. I knew this was something that I wanted to do with my life, but all my life I knew that I wanted to play basketball. I knew that this was the purpose for my life because that's what I told myself growing up was this is where I found my value, this is what I want to do. And when I had to wrestle with God on whether choosing to follow his path that he has for me or follow the path that I have set upon my own, let me tell you something. It took me a very long time to get to where I wanted to be. And let me tell you something. I needed to have faith in myself, and I needed to let God take control of everything because I was about to reach a point to where I almost just gave up on everything. My ability to tell my basketball coaches that I was done and I tell them and tell everyone in school, yeah, I just want to go into youth ministry and that's what I want to do with my life. I can't tell you how many people made fun of me for that. I can't tell you how many people looked at me and said, you really quit playing on the basketball team so you can go and chase after being a pastor? Like you, out of all people, you're the last person I would ever expect to go and do that. That's what people told me. So I'm not going to lie to you, I was a little jerk in high school. I was the last person you would expect to do something like this. But you know what happened? When people were tearing me down, and I was sitting there telling myself, I have faith in God, let me tell you something. I almost did not have faith the size of this. It was hard to keep my faith. When everyone around me was telling me that there was no way that I could accomplish what my actual goal from God was going to be, it was hard. And I don't know what high school is like for all of you guys. And I know there's dreams inside every single one of you guys. There are things that you want to do. And let me tell you something. You're probably afraid to share it because you're afraid that you're going to get made fun of too. But let me tell you something. The thing you want to do, the little piece of dream that you have, the little piece of faith that you have within yourself to want to accomplish that dream, there's a reason why that dream's there. There's a reason why that calling's there for you. It's so that you can chase after it because that very well might just be the purpose that God has for your life. That might as well very well be the purpose that God really has for you. And let me tell you something. It might seem small and insignificant, but God can take the small, insignificant things and make them into something that's unimaginably huge, just like we said earlier. The small, insignificant things often grow into the things that are hugely important. When we talk about all of these lessons, and we join in on what God is doing in the world by sharing Jesus with others by our words and our actions, we are including ourselves in the growing of not just a regular-sized mustard seed, but the actual growing of the kingdom of God. That's the goal, is to grow the kingdom of God. So the big question that we get to ask ourselves tonight is this: how can I join in the growing of this seed, or how can I join in the growing of this kingdom? Mason, you can come up. That's the question. How can I join in the growing of the seed and in the kingdom of God? How can you continue to grow the seed of your dream? Many of you raised your hand in the room. You guys have a goal and you have a dream. How can you continue to make sure that dream keeps growing? How can you make sure that your mustard seed stays on good soil so it can continually grow? Because once you hit bad soil, you stop growing. If you don't base yourself on a foundation of good soil, you won't grow. Eventually you will wither and you will die. And you will fall. And then you're back to square one. And that's the last place I want to see any of you fall and be at. Me and Pastor Mike will come up here week after week, preach topic after topic to you. Why? Because we want to see each and every single one of you grow on a weekly basis, but we want to see you guys be successful. And we want you guys to understand that there is a bigger purpose. There is something so much bigger than ourselves to be a part of. There is something so much bigger that we are invited to be a part of. And that's the kingdom of God. And we grow the kingdom of God by accomplishing the dreams that God has planted in our hearts. Because when we accomplish those dreams that God has given us, that's how we grow the kingdom. The kingdom grows through our faithfulness. Because through our accomplishments, we are then able to bring other people in. We're able to bring other people into this thing. Listen, there's some of you in the room that you guys know that there's things that you have loved, that you've wanted other people to experience. And one of those things very well might be here at church. You just want that one person to come to church, but you just can't get them to come. But you want to continually make sure week after week, hey, why don't you come with me to church? Why don't you come with me to church? I've had those people. And let me tell you something. Those people, sometimes it gets really hard because it just feels like sometimes sometimes in your head you'll just tell yourself, there's no way I'll ever get that person to come here. There's no way that it'll ever happen. But let me tell you something, don't give up. Because as long as you have faith the size of this, and you continually show that faith, not only in yourself, but to that person eventually when they hit rock bottom and they don't know what to do, they want to know, okay, how do you keep yourself together? What's that little piece of faith that you hold on to that makes you build yourself back up when you hit rock bottom? Because I want to experience that too. And let me tell you something, someday that will happen. It may not be next week, it may not be next month, maybe next year. I don't know. But eventually there will be a tug on that person's heart. Let me tell you something, they'll come. But don't give up on them. Don't give up on them. Before we can let God use us to help grow the kingdom, we must let the kingdom grow in our personal lives. We must let it grow in our hearts. Because once it grows in our hearts, then it'll grow to everybody else. To do that, we can do a bunch of things. You guys know how we do it. You guys can pray. You guys can read your Bibles, focus on God, choose to worship God, and take time to actually work on our relationships. You guys know that. See, the growing process is how the seed becomes a tree. And when we place ourselves on good soil or good foundations, we are set to grow into bigger and better things. See, Jesus transforms people like you and I, and he still wants to do the same for others. And as we learn to follow him and tell others about him, we become a part of something that's so much bigger than ourselves. And this is the main point for tonight right here. It's this: God's kingdom is always growing. God's kingdom is always growing. Even when we don't see it, it stays growing. It continually grows over and over. And guess what? We get to be a part of it. We get to be a part of it. We really do. So how could our lives fall more in line with what God wants for us? How can our lives do that? Maybe for you in the room, maybe it's putting your faith in him for the first time. Maybe it's like, yeah, you know, all right, God, I'm going to have this faith in you. I'm going to have this mustard seed faith. I'm going to take the step, and I'm going to see what you can do, and I'm going to trust you. Maybe that's it for you tonight. Or maybe for you in the room, you've known him, but you just don't trust him yet, and you need to. And you have trust issues with that, whether it's because of people previously doing you wrong or whatever it may be. But let me encourage you, God will never do you wrong. God will never do you wrong. If anything, God's the one to put your trust into. If there's anyone in the world that you should be putting your trust into, it's Jesus. Or maybe it's this. Maybe you guys just know. You come week after week, and you're like, yes, we do this Jesus thing week after week. But let me tell you something. Maybe you just don't get better week by week as you go. And maybe you're realizing, now, I do got to do better. And let me tell you something. I got to do better. I realize that every day I got to do better. There's always something within me that I look at, and I'm like, oh, I got to get rid of that. God, help me be better. That's a daily question, a daily thing that we got to work on ourselves with. See, God's kingdom grows within us when we learn to love God more and look more like Jesus. And as this kingdom grows, we are invited to join in the work to see God's kingdom grow all around us. So how can we make the kingdom grow? We can do it by loving others, by sharing our faith with others, by meeting other people's needs. And this one's a tough one: setting an example. Setting the example. Because let's be honest, sometimes we're not the best examples. When you set the example, when you do it appropriately, and you're the example that you need to be, let me tell you something, people are going to come to you. People are going to come to you for help. People are going to come to you for answers. People are going to come to you to figure out, why in the world are you so happy all the time? What is so different about you that makes you be such a good example to others? And you know, just like that tiny mustard seed that we've talked about, tiny actions and tiny choices help. When we show the world what Jesus is like through our love, mercy, and compassion instead of hate, violence, and fear, we're inviting others to experience what we call the goodness of God. The kingdom grows in the world where people are loved like Jesus, and in return, when others choose to love him. And just like God made the mustard seed grow, God has the ability to make our lives' impact grow beyond anything that we can imagine. But that kind of impact doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you place your faith and your trust in him. Because see, faith the size of a mustard seed turns into something unimaginable. in the world and in our lives, God's kingdom is always growing, and you have a place in it. A place where you belong and a place where you are valued. And all you need to do to want to be a part of that is accept Him. Accept what God has done for you. Accept what Jesus has said. That's all you got to do. Faith the size of a mustard seed is all it takes. It's all it takes to make a dream come true. And it's all it takes to change eternity for you. Bow your heads and close your eyes with me.